Hey there everybody, Travis here from Intelligent Choice. I'm really excited to kick this series off where we can start diving into AI system architecture. And yes, it sounds a little bit technical, but really what we're doing is moving from chatbots to building systems that actually solve real business problems. So to start, what we're going to do is tackle a pain point that pretty much every single sales team faces. It's just this nightmare of lead triage. So hundreds of leads, they flood your CRM, and someone has to guess, is this a hot opportunity or simply just a time trap? So when velocity and quality directly impact your revenue, that guesswork becomes very expensive, and you need a way to filter out the noise and surface the real opportunities while still maintaining that personal rapport. So in this video, what I'm going to do is show you exactly how I've built a system that handles the reasoning for all of that. So what we're going to do is cover three main parts here of the build. So firstly, the methodology, right? So how we architect these systems to be reliable, essentially. Second, we're starting to go underneath the hood here, and we're going to look how the tools interact to generate those insights and drive the outcomes. And finally, third, take a look at the bigger picture. So why this simply just isn't for sales, but it's a framework that we can pretty much apply to every single verse. So let's get into it. Right, so before we go underneath the hood, let's look at the blueprint of the system architecture. So what I want you to do is think of it like it's a sequence of challenges that we've solved, and when you put them all together, it creates a really powerful outcome. So we break it into three components. So firstly, it's data. So this is your data ingestion, right? So we pull those unstructured leads directly from Salesforce, and then we ensure that we don't double processes as well. So this is really important for AI systems, is that we don't really want to leak out those costs by double processing. Right, so next is the brain. So we're using Gemini here. So what we do is we take the lead and we base that scoring on three different things, right? So we've got fit, intent, and urgency. And what this does is it essentially takes that unstructured data and turns it into pieces of information that we can make structured decisions around. And finally, muscle, right? So this is the execution layer. So the hot leads, they get instantly routed towards Slack for our sales team to jump on. And while the more warm and cold leads, what we do is we provide them with a personalised email. So we make sure that it's an empathetic outreach, but it keeps the door open for them to act on that. All right, time to bring this blueprint to life. So what we need is a stack of tools that can talk to each other relatively seamlessly. So let's start off with n8n, which is the orchestrator. So this is the command center. It's where we design the logic for the workflow and orchestrate all the other tools. Essentially, it's where everything lives. Next is Salesforce. So this is our CRM and data source. It's where all the leads live. So we have the ability to pull and push. So we can pull data about the company and their inquiry about the sale, and then we can push back to them, whether or not it's a hot, warm, or cold lead to the sales team. Next is Gemini. So this is the brain. So this is where we take that raw lead data and reduce AI insights. We're able to summarize their sales inquiries, find out more about the company itself, and then we're able to score them. So we'll look at the fit, whether or not it's a good suit for our product that we can produce for them. Next is intent. So do they have the actual capital and capabilities to pay for our services? And finally, the urgency. So how quickly do they need the solution? Finally, we've got Slack and Gmail. So this is the execution layer. So Slack triggers an alert when it's a hot lead, so our sales team can just jump onto that immediately. And what Gmail does is it handles the more personalized reach out. So for warm leads, we can set up a 10 to 15 minute copy chat. And for the more colder leads, we can provide them with a sales playbook with a PDF for 2026. Right, it's time to get our hands dirty and start looking under the hood. So as we can see, we've got this entire workflow here. So let me just break it down. So first we've got this data section over here. And then here, we've got our brain section. And finally, this is going to be the execution layer here. So let's start with data ingestion first. So before we even touch the lead data, we need to make this workflow autonomous. So that's where this trigger node comes in right here, this one here. So what it does is that it actually pings Salesforce every minute to identify whether or not a new lead has actually come in. So you might also be wondering, well, how do these tools actually talk to each other? So what I want you to do is kind of think about this as if it's a handshake agreement. So Salesforce agrees to let n8n pull and push data, but only if we provide it with the right credentials, which is an API key. It's kind of like a digital contract that gives the system permission to operate. So we can see that in here is that we've got the Salesforce account. So that's our API key and our credential there. You'll also find this for Gmail. You'll find this for Gemini as well. All of these interactions we have across our workflow. So once that handshake is live, we're actually able to pull those essential lead details. So we can get the name, their company, and the description of the query. So we can see those there. We've got Sandra here, her email. We've got some descriptions here about the inquiries. And we also have guardrails built in. So basically, the system knows which leads have already been processed. So we're able to tick that off. And so this makes sure that nothing gets double counted and it keeps those costs down, which is super important with AI systems like this one. Right, so next up is the brain, which is these nodes over here. Right, so this is where we take that intelligence that we got from our leads and we pump it into Gemini. So basically we take those 5 leads that we've got here and we jump into Gemini. All right, so this is pretty exciting stuff. So within Gemini, we've got a system prompt here, which we can see. And basically what it does is it scores each of those leads based on those 3 KPIs. So intent, urgency, and fit. And it's rated on a 1 to 5 scale. So what this does is it gives us a pretty objective view of whether or not they would be hot, warm, or cold based on that score. Also, the real power here comes from the outputs that we create. So there's some real actionable insights. So we've got the triage insight. So first there's a short summary which we can send to the sales team so they don't have to read every single detail about the inquiry that was given. Next is what we see, that priority rating. So that allows them to determine whether it's hot, warm, or cold. And then we've got this email hook here, which is really special because what it does is it takes the description that we got and creates sort of a personalized reference for them, which will attach to an email in the future with the execution layer. So basically, once we've got all of those outputs there, what you'll find, we've got a little bit of an issue. So we've got all of this text here, which is all of those outputs, but we need to structure that, which is exactly where this special little piece of code comes in now. So we've got this piece of JavaScript here. Basically what it is it takes all of those outputs and then structures. So we've got the intent score, the urgency, the fit. So obviously we can tell that it's cold. We've also got a backstop in here as well. So if the fit is less than 2, it automatically becomes cold because they don't want really anything to do with our company, if that makes sense. And then we've got our summary and the email hook here. So now this is when we actually feed this data back to Salesforce. So we're pushing it back. So the sales team now, after we've updated Salesforce, can look at those intent scores and be able to look at the AI triage insights as well. Right, so final step in the process, the execution, the muscle. So that is these nodes over here. So basically what we did is we created this switch node here. So basically what this does is it sends the hot leads to the top, the warm to the middle, and the cold to the bottom. So the goal here with the hot leads essentially is that we want to make sure that the sales team gets on them immediately. So we immediately send a trigger to send that to Slack. So we can look at it from here. So we've got the fit score, they're 5 out of 5. When we've got those AI insights, which has taken the description, the company, and summarize that for our team so they can jump into Salesforce and immediately make contact. So now we look at the warm stage here. So basically what we wanted to do with warm was really just to ensure that we put the ball in the court of the lead. And it also reduces fatigue for calling up leads that just may not lead anywhere. And it reduces the amount of congestion in the person's calendar as well. So when we look at it here, it fires off that Gmail. So We're saying that, we're loving what you guys are doing here, really interested in it. And would you like to book a 10 to 15 minute coffee talk? So we're putting the ball back in their court and we're keeping those doors open and we're keeping it super personalized. And finally, when we get back here to cold. So basically the goal with any sales team, in my opinion, is that we don't want to shut the door on any of our leads. So basically what happens here is that in the Gmail, we use that same personalized hook. So we're like, okay, so we understand that there might not be a fit for this one here, but what we'd like to do is give you a strategy PDF. So we attach that to all of the cold leads. And basically we just keep the door open. So if they want to touch back in the future, they see something they like in the PDF, they can jump on that. What you also might have noticed here is that we have these two wait nodes. So essentially what this does is that for our warm and cold leads, there's a 15 and 20 minute delay on them. So essentially what we're doing is making it as if the person has read it, they've personalized a response, and they've sent it back off to them. So we want to give that really strong CX and UX feeling there. So let's just wind it back a little bit here and we look at what we've done. So we've got this data, brain, and muscle framework. What we've created here is an AI triage system which is cloud native and completely scalable to the needs of that business. Right, so far we've built a pretty cool sales triage system, but really the real art of AI system architecture is that you can take that data, brain, and muscle framework and pretty much drop it into any high volume workflow. So let's just take a look at a couple more examples here. So perhaps in the real estate industry is that a buyer might make an inquiry online. Gemini will score that buyer against, how ready they are to purchase and their budget. And then what it does is it actually books those viewings for the sales agent, right? So they don't have to waste their time just sifting through all of these inquiries. Who's the buyer, who's not. Next is like customer success. So someone might submit a complaint online. What Gemini will do is it looks at the sentiment of that complaint. So very serious versus not so important, right? So what we do is that we route those complaints, the very super serious ones, to Slack so the team can get immediate on it. And then we personalize the other ones and work on those step by step by step. And finally, perhaps HR and recruiting. So an applicant will submit an application online. Gemini will take that application and assess it against the job description. And then you'll end up ranking the candidates. So the top ones, they end up getting a interview set up for them automatically. And then the ones that are not so great, they just get those automated sort of, sorry, but you're not a great fit email. Really, the thing here is it's a mindset shift, right? So what I want you to do is stop asking, well, how do I do this task? And start asking, how do I architect a system to handle this task at scale, right? So your team focuses on high value work and the system handles all the noise. So as I said, this isn't just automation anymore. What we're doing is designing how your business thinks. So systems handle the noise while your people focus on those really important relationships that generate value. So in the next video, what we're going to be doing is adding a research layer onto this triage system. So essentially AI can pre-interview those leads. It scrapes the web and creates a battle card so your team can prep before they even pick up the phone. And in such a high velocity environment, this is really, really important. And also, if you'd like to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'd love to hear about what you're looking to explore with AI system architecture or just geek out on automation logic. But until then, I'll catch you in the next one.